So cleaning in here is a multi-stage process. First thing I do is I sweep, because I mean it's mostly because I tend to shed a lot of hair, um, and it kind of bunches up in large piles at the end of the month. It's just it keeps it out of the vacuum. So I'm not changing the filter, um, you know, twice a year kind of thing. So I do the sweep, get all the hair up, and then run the vacuum after that. So that's just the first run. As you can see, I can pick up, I mean, there's a bunch of hair in there, but there's actually quite a bit of dust as well. I mean, it's a basement, but I think it's mostly actually because there's a lot of, there's like the radiators and stuff, and it just picks up tons of dust. So, it really does need to be done. Besides just the hair, it's just cleaning up all the particles and stuff out of the basement. I've never, I've lived in a lot of basements, and I've never really seen one that gets dusty like this. I mean, even with the sides, it's I don't know if it's something to do with the air down here or what, but it really does manage to pick up quite substantially. Step two is the vacuum. Picked this up secondhand for $30, I think it was, a few years ago. It's like a pet vacuum, so it's designed for hair, which is good because that's the major thing I'm picking up in here. I just have the one head. I run that through all the different areas in here. Takes a few minutes, and then that's the end of that step. The next step I run through is a quick spot check on the floor. It's mostly just to pick up little bits of, coffee that I might have dropped, or, the odd piece of mustard or something, just stuff like that. I mean, I'm actually usually pretty good about keeping stuff off the floor and wiping things up when I drop them, but I mean, it happens that, you miss something or you don't realize that you gotta drop a coffee or something. I don't actually use a mop, because I am pretty good at keeping things off the floor in the first place. What I use is I just use just a little wipe. Usually I only need one for the whole floor because I'm just picking up just little spots of it. But I mean, it's a good idea to get that up every once in a while, because if some little critter does decide to run through here, it's gonna stop and hover over that. So yeah, that's the next spot. After that, it's just the bathroom and all the regular cleaning things that need to be done in the bathroom. And there's my clean bathroom. Much nicer. As you can see, I do wear makeup sometimes, not all that often, but sometimes. The last thing to do is to take the garbage out. Um, this is actually about a month and a half, and even at that, it's a lot more than normal. There's a lot of bags of chips in here. I mentioned something about that the other day. Normally, it wouldn't even be full, but it's really just bags of chips and uh, paper towels and other things that nothing else can be done with. So that goes into the, I just take it down to the 7-Eleven and throw it in there. That's how I deal with the garbage here. Everything is in the recycle box almost. And I need to make a call, so that's what I'm about to do now. Before I go to make calls, I just want to make some quick comments about the Keystone XL pipeline, which has been in the news in the last couple of days due to Obama's cancellation. Although that was actually it was dropped by Clinton a few weeks ago. She wouldn't have come out and said that unless she knew that Obama was going to cancel it. And it's actually been clear for a while that the State Department was going to be a little iffy about it. But it doesn't. I don't think it has anything to do with the environment. You have to remember this is a State Department review. Now the State Department in the United States, it's not an environmental protection body. It's a body that deals with threats to the United States from a security standpoint, and deals with foreign relations with other countries. So when the State Department comes out with an assessment to block a pipeline or to not allow a pipeline through their territory, that indicates that there are security concerns regarding strategic interests of the United States. Now, you could argue, climate change is not in Canada, maybe in terrorism in East Africa or something, but not relating to Canada. I don't think anybody's concerned, about being invaded by Canada, Canadian bacon notwithstanding. So what's the real issue then? I mean, the real issue is sending oil from Canada to China. That's why. I mean, they don't want that to happen. I mean, they're doing a lot of things to try to, frustrate the Chinese. They've got this Pacific pivot, which is basically a containment policy, where they're putting all kinds of like giant aircraft carriers all around the Pacific region. Which, I mean, they've been there since World War II. I mean, they're significant power in the region. China wants them to go home, like completely. Um, like China's position is that the fleet should go back to San Francisco, kind of thing. Um, but I mean, the Americans are trying to keep them from getting out of that little area. So I mean, it's a game of chicken. It's a containment strategy. They're also, I mean, the TPP is about creating an economic counterbalance to China, and the Keystone is about preventing Canadian oil exports to China. Um, I'm in Canada. I've spent my whole life in Canada. We have a bit of a famous phrase here about living in Canada or living beside the United States is like sleeping with an elephant. It was uttered by our famous Prime Minister a few decades ago. And what it means is that we are affected by everything that happens. A lot of decisions made in the United States are more important than decisions made by our own political bodies, and that's just simply the reality of it. Um, so, I mean, and this kind of means, in a geopolitical standpoint, that Canada is very clearly in the United States sphere of influence. Now, a sphere of influence is a concept that may be a little bit considered a little bit out of date, fallen into disuse. It's still very real, and you just look around the world and you'll see it's there. I think there was a lot of naivety that came out after the end of the Cold War, regarding changes that never really even came close to occurring. And even in the most sporadic post-Soviet context, Canada is clearly under the influence of the United States. So what that means is that from their perspective, I mean, it even says in their constitution. There's a part in the American Constitution about the annexation of Canada. So from their perspective, our oil is their oil. And any process that would be shipping our oil to China would be seen as collusion with a strategic competitor. From their perspective, we would be giving their oil away. Now, of course, we like to think we have some concept of sovereignty. It may be mildly limited, but we like to think we have something there, and we do like to consider it our oil. But the American State Department and the military security people that are involved in that actually would consider that their oil. And they don't like this idea of us. And the truth is that we did mostly just give it away to their strategic competitor. They don't like that. So that's why they're blocking it. Now, you would expect regardless of the circumstances, for our new prime minister to be somewhat upset about that and kind of push the point a little. I mean, regardless of anything else, is just because it's an economic driver for us. If we're not able to get the oil out, then we lose revenue, and it hurts our fiscal situation. That's no secret. Climate change policy aside, it's where we get a lot of our money from. We need this, at least in the short term. Hopefully, one of the things that this guy's going to do is try to change the economy up a little bit so we can get revenue from better sources than that. So you might expect him to kind of push back a little. But the truth is that he hasn't. And in fact, a part of the reason that this announcement came out as it did may be because the politics of the situation are such that he may actually be in favor of this. I'm going to show you something. This is a headline. I will post the link in the description. Former Liberal campaign co-chair was being paid by TransCanada. The headline itself doesn't really tell much of the story. You can see the date there. That's October 15th. The election was on October 19th. And this was around the time when it started to become clear that the Liberals were coming up ahead and may actually be about to win this thing, possibly even win it big, which they did. They won a majority. What happened was that TransCanada is the company that is building the Keystone pipeline, or wants to build it through the United States. It came out that there was some lobbying going on between the co-chair of the Liberal campaign and TransCanada. Now, the funny thing is this. It was TransCanada that went public with this. And they went public with it in a way that was designed to make the process seem sleazy. It was a smear campaign. And it was just a few days before the election. Meaning it was very, very clear political interference by TransCanada to try to prevent the Liberals from winning. And I mean, the truth is, certainly in the United States, lobbying is everywhere. In Canada, it would be normal for the higher-ups in a campaign that's on the brink of winning government to reach out to industry types and try to build contacts. So you may find it a little bit distasteful, but it's entirely normal. That's how business operates, in the type of capitalism, the type of crony capitalism that we live in. It's not anything that would have been unexpected, and as it is, it didn't. If it had any effect, it was immeasurable. But it was clearly an attempt to swing the election, and so now it's easy to see why Trudeau and the Liberals would not really be particularly excited about sticking their neck out to help these people, because they just tried to interfere in the election and produce a result that was unfavorable to them. So that's kind of a side story to this. I know the Keystone, it's a big issue in the States. For reasons that are probably not really connected with reality. There have been other reports that have been done that suggest that the pipeline probably won't have a substantial effect on emissions, because if it doesn't go through there, it'll go through somewhere else. I mean, that's no doubt true. All the symbolism. And that's what our media is focusing on, is this idea that it's a symbol in the United States. That's kind of, they're not really understanding it either. So there's all this kind of misunderstanding about it. It was a military decision about controlling strategic resources and preventing a competitor from accessing them. That's what actually happened. But the reason Canada seems to be less than upset about it. Although, I mean, he'll have to go out and, in front of the cameras and tell Alberta that he feels the decision is unfortunate and everything. But you should not expect much of a fight from Canada on this issue, because that company went out of its way a few days before the election to try and smear the candidate. And it's kind of they kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. And if anything, you may actually see the Liberals go out of their way to make sure that there's some retaliation on that point. That's Canada is like all the other Western countries. There's a confluence of government and big business. But the Liberal Party is fairly established here. They've been out of government for a while, but they're back in now. And poking the Liberal Party in the eye like that, it's not going to win you any contracts. So there are other pipelines that are in the works. They want to send one of them out to New Brunswick. That's probably the one that's most likely. The ones that want to go to BC they're all bad ideas. There's been some talk about sending it out to the Arctic. Something else that hasn't really been talked about but might make sense would be to send it out through Manitoba. Or they could just keep doing it by rail. This isn't, and on top of that, a lot of people don't realize that, in fact, the Keystone already exists. There is already oil pumping from that route. What they actually wanted to do was twin it, so that they would get even more out, and the excess would have to be for export because there's a glut at the moment. But I mean, as far as the environmental ramifications of this are concerned, they're almost nil. But and as far as the economic ramifications of them they're almost nil as well. So I mean, it's really not much of an important decision, but don't expect Canada to fight it, because these guys shot themselves in the foot on that.